What are some psychological life hacks you can do to give you an advantage in situations? Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the Vancher channel. Also, please share your thoughts on this video in the comments. Let's get started. Story 1. I learned this on here a few years ago. For anyone in customer service or works for many different situations, but CS is a big one, put a mirror behind you at the counter. This way, angry customers who approach you will have to see themselves in the mirror behind you, and the chances of them behaving irrationally lower significantly. No one wants to see themselves act like a dickhead. Answer. This is one of the reasons why many bars install large mirrors behind them. The main reason is so the bartender can see who is where and if any new customers approach at all times. But there are other reasons as well. If you're ever tending bar and a customer approaches you directly and starts getting upset or angry, just take a deep breath and step slightly to either side and lean on the bar using either your right or left elbow only. If you move your head out of the way just fast enough to break eye contact, they will be briefly forced to stare at themselves. Even if you don't move fast enough, peripheral vision always seems to notice that familiar face. Also, leaning in puts you in a position of power for quite a few reasons. Only the proudest of assholes are immune. Story 2. If you're in a group meeting and you suspect that someone in there might come after you about something, sit right next to them. They were hoping that the group would provide some sort of herd defense, but if you're right next to them, it can't be anything other than personal. This tends to make them back off, or at least substantially temper what they say. Source: had a job with a huge target painted on my back for years. Story 3. If you ask someone a question and they only partially answer, just wait. If you stay silent and keep eye contact, they will usually continue talking. Story 4. If you really want something from someone, frame it as an offer rather than a request. When Teddy Roosevelt was running for president, his campaign printed out 3 million leaflets with a picture of Teddy and a copy of a campaign speech. The campaign then realized that they didn't have the rights to the photo. Instead of explaining the situation to the photographer, which would have given him leverage to ask for a lot of money, the campaign made an offer that they would use the picture, giving the photographer lots of publicity if the studio paid them $250. The studio paid the money. Story 5. Late to the party, boat? If you're playing beer pong and your opponent is playing like he sold his soul to the devil, all you have to do is ask what he is doing to with his opposite throwing hand. Darn, bro, you're playing hella good. What are you doing with your left hand when you shoot? This will make him conscious of his left hand, and he will start messing up almost every time. Drink well, my friends. Story 6. When you first meet people, try to notice their eye color while also smiling at them. It might be because you look for a second or two longer, but all I can tell you is that people really respond to it. Story 7. In sales, though I guess it could be applied in other ways, once you make the sales pitch, don't say anything else. My boss at an old job was training me and just giving me pointers. I was working at a gym trying to sell memberships. He told me that once I got all the small talk out of the way and presented the prices, that the first person to talk will lose. It didn't seem like a big deal, but it actually worked. Often there were long periods of awkward silence as the person tried to come up with some excuse, but usually they bought. It was quite impressive, actually. Story 8. Foot in the door phenomenon. People are more likely to agree to do a task for you if you ask them to do something simpler first. Story 9. When I worked in retail, I had a tendency to get real curt with rude customers. When I realized I was just taking the bait, I decided to be super nice even when they would get openly hostile. Some of them would get even crazier, and they looked like tools. Answer. I learned pretty quickly that if you have an angry customer, you should just let them be angry. Angry people can't be rational. You can't talk with them, and you'll never, ever change their minds. Stay quiet and let them yell. When they're done yelling, it's time to actually talk. Also, if you don't enjoy being yelled at, feel free to ignore them and think about boobs or something. Story 10. If you get yourself to be really happy and excited to see other people, they will react the same to you. It doesn't always happen the first time, but it will definitely happen next time. Story 11. When you're learning something new, teach a friend how about it. Let them ask questions. If you're able to teach something well, you understand it. Story 12. Promise yourself you'll never talk shoot about other people. Even when the people around you are talking shoot, even when you agree with the shoot they're saying, you don't have to make a big deal of it. just don't partake in it. Once people get the idea you're not into saying mean shoot about other people behind their backs, the amount of shoot they talk around you will decrease. It isn't fun to talk shoot unless everybody's talking shoot. Your decision to stop talking shoot and their eventual reaction to you not reciprocating the shoot talking will positively affect both of you, as well as your relationship. I don't know, for me, since I made this change in how I interact with people, the amount and quality of my friendships has grown. People will trust you more if they haven't listened to you gossip about other people. You will be seen as a more positive person than other friends who do talk shoot. The gap gossiping used to fill will be replaced with way more interesting and/or intimate conversation too. IDK, just stop talking, shoot and be kind. Edit. To whoever gave me gold, thank you so much. I love you. Story 13. For interviews, I recommend altering your psychological state beforehand. Tell yourself, I've known these people all my life. We're old friends catching up. I can't wait to see them. Visualize the experience, shaking hands, making eye contact, having conversation. What things can you not to wait to tell him? Hold an open pose. Stand with your legs apart, hands on your hips and shoulders back while doing this, and smile. This may sound cliche, but you are in charge of your own psychological state and the power of suggestion is strong. Story 14. People are extraordinarily aware of their sense of touch. If someone, a member of the opposite intimacy, accidentally rests their knee on yours, let's say, they know it's there. Story 15. People will remember not what you said, but how you made them feel. Also, most people like talking about themselves, so ask lots of questions about them. Edit. There's been some really good advice in this thread that refines ask about them quite a bit. That would be good to incorporate. Stuff like get them talking on a general topic, movies, music, ask them what movies, music, whatever it was they like, engage them on that, go from there. Offer bits of information about yourself, then bounce it back to them, i.e., the snowboarding suggestion elsewhere in this thread, that was a really good one. Watch out for social cues that it's pissing the person off. They might be one of the people who really don't like talking about themselves. And if you notice those cues, stop. Your goal is to make them feel good via engaging them on their most cherished subjects, i.e. themselves and the things they like the most. Also, this technique is really good for various situations that might otherwise be awkward. For example, when you are trying to draw out a reserved person, how do you do that? Show an interest in them, a genuine one ideally, and go from there. Someone you want to know better in that special boy-girl way? Asking about them is often a really good approach. Trying to get someone to like you in a situation with a power differential, in a workplace setting or a job interview, get them talking, ideally about something work-related that makes them feel competent. They will remember how good they felt in your presence, and that will color their perception of you. You're not aiming to be the audience to a monologue. You're trying to find ways in which you can connect with that other person. The ultimate goal is to connect. Story 16. A Navy lifer I worked with taught me the see one, do one, teach one method. The last step is the most vital step for your comprehension. If you are taught a new task at work, most people learn to do the task and then perform the task. If you find another employee to teach what you just learned, you will comprehend the concept better and retain the info for much longer. Whenever I train a new associate at work, I ask them to go show another coworker how to do the task they just learned. Magic. Story 17. When a group of people laugh, people will instinctively look at the person they feel closest to in that group. Read, want to know who wants to bone who? Look at who they look at when everyone laughs. Story 18. I always try to figure out everyone's motivations for what they are doing. Are they trying to take advantage or are they genuinely trying to help someone? In business situations, who stands to profit? Always follow the motivations and always know who profits. By knowing this, you can protect yourself from being taken advantage of. If you find someone being altruistic, you know who to befriend. Story 19. The best one I ever heard was, apparently, if you have a warm hand when you shake somebody's hand, you immediately become a more desirable person to get along with. Story 20. I work with mentally disabled children and have found it highly beneficial to describe their capacities in such a way that I indirectly describe their limitations, as opposed to the reverse. In real-life terms, avoid negative words when pitching something unfavorable to an audience that you want to receive it well. If you can do it in writing, all the better, because you get to pick out your words carefully. Also, focus the manner by which you intend to fix things rather than the problems. Johnny can't even speak in phrases and only turns his head to you when you say his name, but doesn't make eye contact. He won't sit in a chair for more than a minute unless you repeatedly tell him to. Nope. Try again. Johnny uses words to communicate, so the next step is to strengthen his skills up to the level of two-word phrases. He responds to his name by turning, so we're going to work on his ability to maintain eye contact. Johnny is able to remain seated for longer than 1 minute if given repeated prompting. Which would you rather hear about your kid? This also applies to other types of work. Use it to present anything negative. Works magnificently. Story 21. My personal favorite is when people are angry at me. If I stay calm, it'll get them even angrier and be ashamed about it after. Answer. It's called an adrenaline dump, and it's easily one of my favorite tactics. It's basically conversational judo. There's an evolutionary precedent for it, too. Adrenaline is manufactured in response to a threat, and two people yelling at each other both register as a threat to their opponent, creating an adrenaline arms race. But if that steady increase is interrupted, the whole buildup is swept out from under a person. The shame sets in almost automatically, an innate response to assessing someone else as a bigger threat than they actually are. Saw it in practice about a year ago. I was having a barbecue with some friends and coworkers in the lot behind our office. Some drunken jackass ambles over from a nearby strip club and demands a hot dog, getting more and more belligerent when he's repeatedly denied. At first, we said we'd hook him up if we had any left over, and that the ones on the grill were already spoken for, but he didn't much care for that. My friend, easily half his size, looks the red-faced raging jerk square in the eyes and calmly says, "Hey man, I just want to know something. What's your name?" The stranger gives his name, visibly taken aback but still extremely pissed. "Where are you from? What's your deal?" The stranger, now equal parts angry and confused, says he's a local contractor and he lives a few blocks away. My friend nods and, with a confident, measured glare that could chill fresh coffee, says, "One last question. Why are you being so fudge-agro at our barbecue?" You could pinpoint the exact nanosecond the guy's rage simmered out and the embarrassment barreled in. He looked around sheepishly and, without a word, turns around and ambles back into the alleyway, disappearing into the strip club's back door without a second glance. Story 22. People have a certain image of themselves and will fight tooth and nail to cling to it. Use this information wisely. Answer. Once I figured out that most arguments are purely social posturing, it has allowed me to just let them roll up my back. Okay, so-and-so, you want me to think you are such and such, so you are going to actively argue with me until I concede that point. Or I have caught myself arguing with my boyfriend so that he perceives me as I want him to perceive me. So I figure it's all BS, and if I really want him to think a certain way of me, maybe I should do things that would get him to think that instead of just arguing it into his brain. Story 23. You can judge the character of a person by how they treat people who can do absolutely nothing for them. Story 24. I remember the last time this thread showed up, someone posted that if you ask someone to do you a small favor, cognitive dissonance will make them believe that because they did that favor, they therefore must like you. After all, why would they help someone they disliked? I don't have a source, unfortunately, but I believe the original comment did if anyone can find the previous thread. Answer. This isn't necessarily true. Cognitive dissonance is the finding that when your actions and your attitudes don't match up, i.e., create dissonance, you will often change your attitudes to match your actions. So if you're a jerk and you ask me to do you a favor and I do, I might experience dissonance and change my attitude toward you. But there is also the idea of sufficient justification. If you're a jerk and my boss and you ask me for a favor and I do it, I won't necessarily feel dissonance. Because my behavior and attitudes are not in conflict. I didn't do you a favor because you're an okay guy. I did it because you're my boss. In the classic dissonance study, subjects in the sufficient justification condition were paid 20, and subjects in the other condition were paid 1. When they were paid a lot of money, their behavior and attitudes were not out of line. Why did I lie to you? Because I got paid. Story 25. The moment your alarm wakes you up, immediately react by sitting up. Pump your fist and shout, "Yeah." Edit. Yes, I do this. You should too. Story 26. You know how a joke ceases to be funny when you have to repeat it? Well, use that to your benefit. If that jerk in the group is making jokes at your expense, act like you can't hear him and ask him to repeat it like 3 times. By the time he says it a third or fourth time, no one's laughing. Story 27. Here's a comment I made from a post about this a long time ago. It's my time to shine. Psychological researcher here, and I have a few tips to help you out in some situations. Romance, look up the false attribution of arousal. Basically, if you want to make someone like you, get their heart rate going. Take them on a date to see a scary movie and then go out for coffee. This puts their body in an aroused, increased blood flow, not intimacy state. Their mind then falsely attributes that physiological effect to being with you, making them think they like you. Hopefully they actually do, but this gets the ball rolling. Attractiveness, wearing red. For women, the color red makes them exponentially more attractive. Research has shown that men will go to great lengths to do things for a woman in red that they would not do otherwise, like give her money or even carry her across the street. Interviewing, body mirroring. So something that we do that we don't realize is mirror the body language of people that we like our friends. If they sit cross-legged, we will. If they touch their face, we will. This goes back to the subconscious will to be more like the people that we respect. You can kind of force this, though, say in an interview. Put a conscious effort into mirroring the body posture of your interviewer, but don't be obvious about it. Be nice and subtle. This will kind of trick their mind into thinking that they like you. After all, you are doing similar things with your body. Why not? Get them to talk about themselves. People are selfish, and they love talking about what they do. Ask your interviewer as many questions about what they do for work and really listen. They will walk away from the interview in a good mood because they got to talk about themselves, and they will then think that the interview went well. If you are able, schedule the interview as early as possible. There's a ton of cognitive psychology research about the primacy effect, which essentially states that items are more memorable if they are presented earlier. So if you're going into a grad school interview where the person will literally be interviewing all day, you will be more memorable if you go first. If you are unable to be first, go last. Similarly, there is research about the recency effect, which states that items are also memorable if they are presented last, though the primacy effect is more reliable. Just try not to be stuck in the middle. Debate, don't give your stance first. Give your argument. In some self-interest research that I did myself in my undergrad, I found that your persuasiveness is fragile and dependent on your social identity. For example, if you came out and say, I'm an atheist and this is what I believe, you are already seen as less persuasive and more biased because people already know why you are arguing. What you're arguing. You have something to gain by convincing people. You're an atheist. What you should do is not say you're an atheist at all. Say, this is what I believe, because people don't have an assumption already in their mind, they will be more likely to view you as less biased. Bonus points if you're on the opposite side. For example, a conservative arguing for gay rights is going to be viewed as very persuasive and not biased at all because they literally have nothing to gain from holding that viewpoint, while a homosexual arguing for gay rights does have something to gain and thus is seen as more biased. Additional oddities. Reminding people of their passing will make them more likely to follow a charismatic leader. You have a much higher chance of success in a relationship if your parents and your friends like your romantic partner. The placebo effect is actually more powerful than some medications. One study found that cancer patients given a placebo to treat their cancer had a 12 increase in remission rates. A UCLA study found that students worked better in a partner task with an openly homosexual student as opposed to an ambiguously homosexual. Seems gay, but not sure. This was true for both cognitive tasks, math, and motor tasks. There's a ton more fascinating social psychological research out there. TLDR psychology is boss. Story 28. I cannot take credit for this. I remember reading this from another askreddit post. The key to confidence is walking into a room and assuming everyone already likes you. Edit. Grammar. Story 29. Always give your kid a choice that makes them think they are in control. For instance, when I want him to put his shoes on, I will say, do you want to put your Star Wars shoes on or your shark shoes on? Answer. This is one of the most effective things that too many parents don't do. Do you want to put on your shoes? Guarantees a fight. Master Logician's way is much better. Or when you are leaving a place, not, are you ready to go? But rather, since we are leaving now, do you want to say goodbye to the host before or after you put on your coat? This makes all three actions, leaving, coat, goodbye, taken for granted, and as soon as the kid picks, they have agreed to doing all three, which you can bring up if they balk. You wanted to say goodbye and then put on your coat because we are leaving. Remember? Story 30. Make it a practice to get rid of filler words and phrases such as like, you know, etc. Instead, use short pauses to gather your thoughts before speaking, though avoid Shatner-style pauses. Using filler words keys whoever you're talking to that you are thinking about what you're saying. Leaving them out makes these thinking spots less noticeable. Since you aren't essentially announcing to the world that you are thinking, it makes you seem more sure of yourself. Story 31. Pay attention to people's feet. If you approach two people in the middle of a conversation and they only turn their torsos and not their feet, they don't want you to join in the conversation. Similarly, if you are in a conversation with a coworker who you think is paying attention to you and their torso is turned towards you, but their feet are facing in another direction, they want the conversation to end. You should check out Carol Kinsey Goman's research on these types of things in the workplace. Story 32. Refer to people you've just met by their name. People loving being referred to by their name, and it will establish a sense of trust and friendship right away. Say your friend introduced you to Peter. After 5 minutes, he decides to leave. Don't just say bye, but instead say, bye, Peter. Story 33. Plan something every Wednesday that you can look forward to. Everyone looks forward to the weekend, but that always seems like a long ways away when you are getting up Monday. If you plan something small to do, like treating yourself to some frozen yogurt or setting up a movie date, you will look forward to that in the beginning of the week. Then by the time it's over, half the week has gone by, and you are that much closer to the weekend. Story 34. The physical effects of stress, increased breathing rate, heart rate ECT, mirror identically the physical effects of courage. So when you're feeling stress from any situation, immediately reframe it. Your body is getting ready to do courage. It's not feeling stress. Answer. When I took face-offs for lacrosse in high school, I'd always get a twinge of nerves right before the face-off. I mean, for a few seconds, all eyes would be on me, and the momentum of the game depends on you winning the ball. I'd always take the little jittery feeling. Imagine I was about to get into a fight, grit my teeth and breath through my mouth as hard as I could right before the draw. It helped me go from being jittery to being pumped up. Story 35. Don't get angry when others expect you to get angry. It pisses them off and puts them off their game. Story 36. This has been posted before, but if you want to stare at someone unashamedly, look directly past them and wait for them to try and meet your eyes. When they fail to do that, they'll look around, usually nervously for a second, and won't look at you again for some time. This is your chance to straight up stare at this person for at least 45 seconds. Answer, I'm a wedding photographer and often I have to stare with a camera pointed their way when I know a great moment is coming. If they realize I'm watching them, then they'll either feel creeped out or they'll start acting how they think I want them to act, which usually isn't, since I really just wanted them to keep doing what they were doing. If they glance over, simply not reacting works wonders most of the time. In the cases where it doesn't and they keep looking, I simply look past them and shuffle a bit as if they are in my way, and I become invisible to them again. Story 37. After a person breaks up with someone, they are at their most vulnerable state for manipulation because of the flood of emotions. This could be used for the good or evil purposes. Story 38. Sounds dumb, but if you stand in an open or more aggressive position for like 2 minutes, you'll feel more confident. Story 39. This sounds a bit silly, but if you're asking for a favor, always use the word because. I remember reading about a study done at a university where they used every imaginable combination of words to ask if they could cut in line for the photocopier. And they found that using the word because short-circuited people's brains into believing that there's a reason for it. Even if they said something stupid like, could I please cut in line? Because I need to make some copies. Story 40. When you find yourself in a situation where you're forced to do a job you don't care about, instead of thinking of the job as something you're doing while you wait for your one true passion, just forget about what it means to you and think instead about doing it well. Making sandwiches to pay the bills? Make really good sandwiches and be friendly. Doing scut work for your coworkers since you're the lowest on the totem pole? Do really good scut work. Sweeping floors? Make your floors the cleanest. If you get your ego out of the way, you'll realize that there's a lot of joy to be found in doing anything well, with passion, integrity, and care for the people who you're serving. And the people around you will recognize you as a passionate, serious, caring person, even if what you're doing isn't what you're truly passionate about. Perhaps more importantly, it will create the habit of excellence. You don't develop that habit by slacking your whole life and then suddenly being awesome once you reach an imaginary plateau. Story 41. If you want to build rapport or gain someone's trust quickly, match their body posture and position. If someone is sitting with her legs crossed, cross your legs. If they're leaning away from you, lean away from them. If they're leaning towards you, lean towards them. Mirroring and matching body position is a subconscious way to tell if someone trusts you or is comfortable with you. If you're sitting with your arms crossed and you notice someone else is sitting with her arms crossed, that is a good indicator that you are successfully building rapport with that person. You can use this in any situation where you need to gain somebody's trust quickly. Matching somebody else's body posture will psychologically signal to them that they can be comfortable around you. This can benefit you in any job situation or any interviewing situation or any situation where you need to gain a person's trust quickly. Did I mention it builds trust quickly? Edit. Fix talk-to-text errors. Story 42. If you and a coworkers are slacking off just talking to each other and your supervisor comes up and starts saying, "What the hell are you doing?" or blaming your group for something, just look at one of your coworkers and don't make eye contact with your boss. Your coworker will likely be looking at your boss, and when your boss sees you looking at the coworker, the anger will be directed at them and not you. It works almost every time. A guy I worked with used to be the laziest and always started screwing around but never got in trouble. He told me his secret, and I have used it successfully ever since. Story 43. You are in control of your emotions and thoughts. Try replacing some immediate responses. Tell yourself you're happy about something or you're excited. Eventually, your brain will end up believing it. That's the same for being down, and that's why you should never try to diagnose yourself. Saying you're depressed or have social anxiety would end up with you being more anxious and more depressed. You won't notice it at first, but over a few months, it will have a pretty noticeable effect on your personality. Edit. I meant feeling depressed, not being depressed. Also, it depends on the scenario, as a lot of things are out of our control. Answer. While current affective state may be suggestible, there's a lot of science that would argue being in actual control of emotion and reaction isn't possible. Effective forecasting, or the ability to predict how one will feel and react to a certain stimulus, shocking news, physical threat, etc., has been shown to be unreliable. We, as human beings, are shoot at that. Story 44. If you're into psychological hacks, then you must read Get Anyone to Do Anything, also on iTunes audiobooks. It's a fascinating, easy-to-understand book written by a psychologist. The hacks are divided up into chapters. How to catch someone out on a lie, for example. Brilliant technique. I gave this to an old manager I used to work with. He was having problems with a board member that disliked him and wouldn't agree with any of his suggestions, regardless of how good they were. After applying techniques in the book, that all changed. I also used it to get a date with a woman who I considered way out of my league. It worked, I'm ashamed to say. Story 45. If you are angry at the person in front of you driving like a grandmother, pretend it is your grandmother. It will significantly reduce your road rage. Story 46. Power posing. Watch this awesome TED Talk about power posing and the impact it will have on your life. Story 47. Be really nice and courteous to gardeners, cleaners, garbage men, etc. Be sincere about it. Not only do you surround yourself with people who are happier than they'd otherwise be, you generally always get better service. Story 48. When you feel nervous about some type of job performance, realize that you'll be dead someday. Internalize it. Let it sink in. For me, this helps me realize that what I am about to take on ain't all that big of a deal. Do not try this if you're a surgeon. Story 49. You don't have to. You get to. Edit. Regarding cancer. I have to have chemo. I get to have chemo. Which one would you rather say? Have to is a great way to remove agency and make yourself a victim of your own life. I'm not saying that cancer is great or fun or that this trick will magically make your suffering go away, but it will reframe it so that you are an agent in your own life and adds a dollop of gratitude. Got cancer? You can be a monstrous cancer patient or an inspiration. You can give the fudge up or you can go down fighting. I've watched both, and the quality of one is far better than the other. Story 50. Stand up straight, no slouching, hands out of pockets, and head held up high. It's not just a cliche. You literally feel better, and people around you feel more confident in you. Not always a must, but try to dress well for important occasions, including interviews. If you look good, you feel good. And if you feel good, you'll do good. In a negotiation setting, always start by anchoring, meaning start on a more radical extreme end of what you expect to get. That way, you and the other side can work to that result, rather than you locking yourself out of it. Avoid saying I think and I believe unless absolutely necessary. These are phrases that do not evoke confidence and will literally do you no good. When playing a game of cards with casual players, mutter to yourself the exact opposite of what you want to happen. So if you want your opponent to fold, then mutter, please don't fold, please don't fold. An overwhelming amount of times, the opponent will fall for the bait. When feeling anxious, clean up your house apartment. You will feel happier and more accomplished than before. From an academic standpoint, this is mostly just armchair psychology, but from a real-world standpoint, these have all worked very well in my personal and professional lives. Answer. I disagree with number 4, context matters. Cultural and situational. Generally, when talking about facts, don't use I think, believe. Example, in an oral exam, show your knowledge. Disclaimer, there might be less facts than you think. You do more chores than your roommate? That might not be a fact to him. When talking about opinions or when in a situation where you could hurt the feelings of someone, use subjectifying elements. A lot. I think, believe, feel are invitations to the other part to agree, disagree, and explain their point of view, especially when in a conflict. This stuff de-escalates. Try it. Story 51. Always buy the first pitcher. You'd be surprised how long you can drink on the phrase, I bought the first one. Story 52. Demonstrate value. Engage physically. Nurture dependence. Neglect emotionally. Inspire hope. Separate entirely. Story 53. 20-20-20 rule on using a computer. After 20 minutes of usage, stare at something which is approximately 20 meters away for 20 seconds. For work purposes only. If you're in a game, don't ever stare away. Story 54. If you forget someone's name in a social gathering, introduce them to someone you know. They will automatically say their name every time, and you can capture it. You say to unknown name person, this is my friend Poopface. To which unknown name person responds, hello Poopface, I'm Scott. Nice to meet you. Story 55. The Benjamin Franklin effect. My favorite psychological phenomenon is cognitive dissonance. It's when you hold two opposing beliefs or values, and it causes what's known as psychological discomfort. When this happens, you'll act or think in a way to ease the discomfort, usually by trying to blend the beliefs' values by changing the way that you think, act in terms of one of them. The Benjamin Franklin effect is what happens when you arouse cognitive dissonance in someone that doesn't like you by asking them to do you a small favor. If they do the favor, which they probably will if it's small enough of a request, then you invoke cognitive dissonance as they hold two beliefs, that they don't like you, but that they are willing to help you out. This results in them trying to resolve this psychological discomfort by creating the belief that they actually like you. So you can turn your enemies into your friends simply by asking them to do you a small favor. Very cool, very useful. Or at least Benjamin Franklin thought so. Story 56. Primacy and recency. People most remember the first and last things to occur, and barely the middle. When scheduling an interview, ask what times the employer is interviewing and try to be first or last. Story 57. In college, whenever I had an exam, I would always study in the classroom. The class was in. I would write all my notes on the whiteboard and memorize them on the board. Then whenever the test came, if I got stuck, I'd be able to look at the board and imagine what I wrote on it. Story 58. Your action affects your attitudes more than your attitudes affect your actions. This goes for moral ethics stuff, but also mood. If you're feeling down, doing what you would have done if you were happy will make you more happy, not including depression. As my former teacher said, you can jump and dance in joy, but you can also jump and dance yourself joyful. Story 59. For taking paths, always have a water bottle with you and chew mint-flavored gum or have mints on you. An hour of sleep before midnight is the equivalent of 2 hours after midnight with serotonin levels. So try to sleep early and wake early and you'll feel more rested. You're more likely to retain knowledge by spacing out study sessions and getting 8 hours of sleep the night before than cramming and getting less sleep. The things you learn from having a biopsychology degree. Story 60. There are decisions in life you should make beforehand. Because if you find yourself doubting important stuff in the heat of the moment, your decision will be difficult and more likely to be wrong. For instance, having unprotected intimacy. If you think about it for the first time when you are about to have it, it's easier to let the situation slip and make a poor decision. Story 61. When someone acknowledges a favor or an act of kindness, generosity you performed for them, respond with, "No problem. I know you would do the same for me." This plants the notion that they should reciprocate while also reinforcing the act as genuine and friendly. Story 62. Say people's names, especially if you're interested romantically in them. It kind of jumps a lot of hurdles to a level of familiarity and makes them interested in you. But don't overdo it. Story 63. If you feel uncomfortable in a social situation, try making someone else feel comfortable. Forget about yourself and focus on them. You'll both be glad that you did. Most of the things I use have been said already, but there is something that I can't really describe that I use. Do you remember that feeling you used to get as a kid when you were really genuinely excited about something and you just had a compulsion to jump around and tense your stomach and kind of make a high-pitched sound while your face was locked in a broad smile? It's an intense feeling that swells in your stomach. If ever you're really intensely nervous or anxious and feeling sick about something you're about to do, like public speaking or even about to talk to a girl you like, turn your fear into that feeling. Tense your stomach or legs, feel your head swell, and have that urge to jump around and scream with joy, but don't actually do it. Keep a calm, pleasant head while this feeling is bubbling under the surface. People can sense this inner enthusiasm and will find it captivating and infectious. Story 64. When you are really sad or having a bad day, make a really angry face and say "bubbles." Gets me every time. Story 65. If you're walking in a semi-busy crowd along a footpath, look just above their heads, and they'll most likely see you and move out of the way. I use this a lot at school. Story 66. Mom taught me that if you repeat whatever someone says as a question, it's belittling and makes them feel stupid. It makes you look meany, though, if you do it too much. Hi, Mom. Story 67. At work, I used to depend on the input of one of my team members. He was really argumentative and mostly a massive fudge male body part, but unfortunately he was absolutely amazing at what he did, so we all just put up with it. He took every opportunity to undermine me and make him look better than me, etc., etc. Anyway, I used to manipulate him really well with a "Mate, I'm totally stuck here. What do you think's the best way to do it?" And straight off the bat, he'd just tell me the best thing to do. Or if I was torn between two ideas and I knew he wouldn't pick either, just to be a prick, I'd tell him we've got two choices, but before I give him a chance to shoot them down, I'd then ask him which he thought would work best for him. Worked every time. Until he showed his cock to a woman and we sacked him. Story 68. Dear Man is the best algorithm for negotiating interpersonal conflicts and getting what you need. Describe the facts I noticed that you have been taking my food from the company fridge. Explain how the facts make you feel and it really makes me upset and hurt. Ask your demands. Please stop taking my food. Reinforce good behavior. Thank you for agreeing to stop taking my food. I really appreciate your consideration. Be mindful, yada yada. Combine this with broken record technique. If they say, "But I was hungry," or "Why were you invading my privacy?" or something else off topic, return to the top and ignore what they are saying. DEA interruption. Dear, this is an algorithm that is taught in dialectical behavioral therapy, and people pay out the wazoo to learn it. Who's it? Story 69. Sit across from men, sit next to women. I don't know the exact psychology to this, but it's worked well for me. Story 70. Before an interview, go to the bathroom and strike a power pose for 2 minutes. For example, stand with your chest out, hands on your hips, and chin in the air. There was a lecture on TED Talks by this woman who said that your posture can affect the amount of testosterone that your body produces. If we stretch our bodies out to take up as much space as possible, our body will react by producing more testosterone. Therefore, you will feel more confident about yourself during the interview. IDK the link to the video, but hopefully someone can upload it. Story 71. If someone is yelling about something and you need to calm them down, don't respond at their volume level, but at one much lower, softer. Eventually they will follow cue, either because they suddenly realize how ridiculous they sound being the only one yelling, or simply because, animal behaviorism and reverse psychology? I don't really understand why. Just the fact that it has worked in the situations I've employed it. Story 72. Always come up with a reason in your head why someone could have done whatever they did and not be a male body part. Like, you're driving and someone cuts you off. So instead of thinking, hey, jerk, you think they probably didn't see me until the last minute there. Or if someone does something dumb, think of why it might have seemed like a good idea at the time rather than fuming over how idiotic it was. A lot of the time you might be wrong because, hey, sometimes people really are assholes or stupid. But you know what? You will spend less time being cranky, pissed off, and resentful. This is the most important and the most effective when applied to strangers you won't meet again because you don't need to be able to predict their future behavior. But it's useful and important for people you know well too. Story 73. If you are ever fighting Deadpool in a battle for your life, aim to your left. He always dodges right every single time. Story 74. If you have someone in your life between 2 to 7, based on their brain development, they don't understand conservation. So if you have 2 crackers and they have 1, for example, break theirs in half and they will think it is equal. Story 75. Try and use people's names throughout conversation as an oral cue to keep them engaged in the conversation. It also helps you remember their name if you're meeting them for the first time. Instead of yelling at someone during a fight, drop your voice to a whisper. It forces the other person to listen more closely. Both of these hacks are useful on unruly children and significant others. Story 76. While walking or running, if you cross paths with someone with a dog, look at the dog first and then up at them, and they'll be much more likely to smile at you. This is especially true with females. Story 77. When conning people, trespassing, and being otherwise deviant, express yourself with your body, not your words. Make it seem like you know what you are doing and that you are meant to be somewhere, even when there is no evidence of that. A calm but purposeful pace, an aloof but definite gaze, etc. Story 78. If you're doing something physically engaging, riding bike, rock climbing, with someone of the opposite intimacy, their body will confuse their sense of being tired, increased heart rate and stuff, with being attracted to you. Story 79. If you are competing with another person to buy a product, have another friend talk to your competitor about the Lord Jesus Christ. Story 80. Upon meeting someone, e.g., future employer, always provide a firm handshake. It makes a good first impression. That and maintaining eye contact during a conversation can benefit you immensely. With that in mind, keeping your drink in your left hand prevents you from giving a wet or cold handshake. Story 81. Learn to meditate and practice mindfulness. If you have a good control over your mind, then you have a great advantage in many different situations. Story 82. Use absence to increase respect and honor. Too much circulation makes the price go down. The more you are seen and heard from, the more common you appear. If you are already established in a group, temporary withdrawal from it will make you more talked about, even more admired. You must learn when to leave. Create value through scarcity. The 48 Laws of Power. Story 83. If you want to avoid doing that awkward sidestepping thing as you walk towards a stranger in the street, pick one of their shoulders to look over as you approach them, and they'll get an idea of which side you're going for. Story 84. Don't apologize for anything during a job interview. Challenges to your experience, education, or personality are meant to be addressed in the most positive manner possible, not apologize for. And don't preemptively apologize for something. I know I don't have the right experience, but they might not even be thinking about whatever it is you lack. Don't bring it up and don't address it until they bring it up. Story 85. If you ever have to ask someone to leave from your business party even home for being too tipsy, don't yell or try to intimidate the person. Instead, you should sound stern but deeply disappointed in the person. This way, the person won't mirror your aggression toward, but your disappointment in them. I was a bouncer and bartender for years, and not once did I ever get into a fight, even on the rowdiest days, using this method. Story 86. At the end of an interview, ask if anyone has any concerns about your ability to perform the job, and if you can help address those concerns. Story 87. Okay, so I'm a little late to the party here, but I rolled my ankle big time the other day and have been walking with a serious limp because I can't put any weight on it. Instead of focusing on the pain when I walk, though, I instead imagine that I'm Dr. House, which makes me feel like a total badass. Story 88. When someone gets in your face screaming, let them get it out, then lower your voice in response. So low it's close to a whisper. You'd be amazed how quickly they lower their tone and focus clearly on their issue. Works wonders. Also, always leave your adversary an escape route. Backing them into a corner will only make them hardened and immovable. Letting them leave with a modicum of respect means win-win for both parties. Story 89. If you yawn when you are with someone, if they're truly paying attention to you, they'll yawn as well. When I first read this, I walked up to my mom and sister without saying a word and it just yawned. My sister copied, mom just stared. Felt the love then. Story 90. This will undoubtedly be buried, but if you deem yourself remotely intellectually superior to your peers, coworkers, etc., allowing yourself to be perceived as less intelligent is an advantage. And if you're on the other side of the coin and posed a question you can't answer, just reciprocate it into another question. I've worked with the smartest and dumbest, and both tend to succeed with this advice when applied appropriately. Story 91. This might be buried, but a super helpful life hack. Don't forget that every day you have 1,000s of thoughts. You choose to pay attention to some and not others. Some of these thoughts are more or less helpful than other thoughts, which is important, as what you choose to pay attention to can change your emotions and behaviors. Also, we treat every thought we have as complete fact, and that is has to be true, which is not always the case. We often have thoughts that are really just made up, like, if I eat this, I won't fit into my shirt. So if you're ever having a moment of sadness or feeling bad about something in the past, future, just think, is this true? For example, signals next thought action. I'm hungry. I ate 3 hours ago. I'm only hungry because I'm fat. If you want to lose weight, you shouldn't eat. Sadness, anger, resentment, etc., etc. If you recognize that these thoughts you're having early on, I'm only hungry because I'm fat, are not fact, then you stop the train of thought. This can be applied to many, many situations. Thus, you become less tied down in your thoughts and able to connect with the world more and live your life. TLDR, you control the thoughts you pay attention to. Story 92. If you get into a situation where you have to openly vote on something, people will usually follow what the first person votes. Since I have learned it, the most it has done for me is let me pick the map I want in Gary's mod. Story 93. Only give yourself 3 seconds to approach people. If you give yourself time, you end up making excuses and talking yourself out of it. Story 94. If someone asks you a tough question, for example, an oral presentation, always say that's a great question. It will give you time to think of an answer by explaining how it is in fact a great question. And they will stop listening anyways because they are overcome by the self-satisfaction of asking a good question. The audience will too, and you will no longer be liable to come up with fantastic answer for this tough question. Merely a satisfactory answer. Story 95. If you're a really good liar, pretend to be a horrible one. It makes people trust you more, and when you seriously need to lie, everyone does. It's a necessity in life. If they confront you about it, provide examples of how a liar you are to back you up. Story 96. If you're worried about what people will think while trying to do something in public, just remember you will never ever see these people ever again. Just keep repeating that to yourself and you'll get it done. Story 97. Always self-care before making any kind of serious decision. Some decisions are just made directly from your balls. Story 98. Learn to read body language. It will save you time and help you keep conversations from dragging on. Story 99. Not sure if this is what you want, but I've found that if you get embarrassed, don't react as if you were embarrassed. Just tank through it and laugh it off if someone brings it up later. Get caught staring at a girl's breasts. Make intense eye contact for a good second, then resume staring at her boobs. Never yield. Story 100. I'm not sure if this is a psychological life hack, so much a great way to think about things. I'll mention it anyway. Whenever someone puts me down or I have a really bad day, I just think a simple thought. Even though it seems like this person doesn't like me, or even though this person is being really annoying, they're just doing it to help me. I kind of imagine that everyone else is in some sort of a state of enlightenment, and the only reason that someone would throw something or another my way is because they're actually just trying to help me reach that state of enlightenment. Whether or not this is true is a completely different matter, but it is a nice way to go through life, and it certainly makes it easier to deal with the occasional jerk. Story 101. The only person you are in control of in this world is yourself. The only thing you really control is your reaction. Don't let other people's choices, actions, or unforeseen events bother you, and don't let them dictate your reactions. I was diagnosed with cancer at Christmas, and I got a fast ride on this road. Life sucks, lots of things suck, but if I spend all of my time focusing on how much people annoy me or how awful the weather is, I'm wasting my potential happiness. I'm in control of my attitude, and I'm choosing to be positive. Story 102. Assume familiarity. Not in a weird, creepy way, but if you approach new people with the attitude and rapport of someone you're already friends or at least acquaintances with, you'll essentially define the beginning of your relationship with a positive note and heavily influence your interactions in time to come. Story 103. This was from a talk you heard a while back from a behavioral psychologist. Consequences matter. We are more likely to do behaviors that are rewarded and less likely to do behaviors that are not rewarded or punished. Spend more time praising, recognizing, and reward, and less time correcting, reminding, and discouraging for both others and yourself. Reward small steps toward a large goal. Behavior is more influenced by immediate consequences than by delayed ones, even when the delayed consequences are better. Self-control be gained when we delay immediate consequences, even by just a few minutes. Arrange environmental cues to encourage behaviors you want and discourage the behaviors you don't. E.g., have your exercise clothes sitting out in your room and hide the junk food in the back of the pantry. Learn and teach by doing rather than saying. Don't just say you know how to do something, practice it. Confront your fears in ways that ensure your success. Experience fearful situations when negative consequences are not likely to happen, e.g., practice speech in front of a mirror, then in front of friends, etc. If you want to be happy or brave or confident, fake it, and you will eventually feel happy, brave, or confident. Story 104. Familiarity breeds contempt. Don't always be available to people. Have a good time whenever you're with them and keep things on a positive note, but don't always be available to them. They will miss you when you're on. Every time they see you, they'll be happy. It also keeps you out of a lot of drama. People value things that are rare. Have several groups of friends that you rotate through. You'll always be well-liked. Of course, don't do this if you're in a relationship or something. Story 105. If you are ever feeling down, grab your imaginary sword and fight some ninjas. You will feel better afterwards. You may also fight orcs, Sith, whatever you want, but make sure to have enough space around you to not knock anything down. Story 106. I guess it's part psychological, part physical. If you want, hold your breath longer underwater, hyperventilate before swimming underwater, tricks your brain into thinking you don't need that much oxygen. Former competitive swimmer. Story 107. I'm coming in late, but here we go. In an emergency situation, everyone looks around for someone that knows what is going on. The problem being no one does. So you have to be the person to lead. Directly point to individuals and give them clear and short directions. You go call 911. You go pull the fire alarm. Do not wait for someone else to lead. If you do, it might be too late. Story 108. When I approach a crowd that has no intention of making any accommodation for me, I simply stop moving and stand still. 3 wide on a sidewalk? Bam! I'm a statue now. Now, the social agreement is that I am no longer required to make any sort of accommodating actions. No matter how many people or how stubborn the opposing crowd is, they would be colossal male body part for bumping into me. I have placed the onus for moving past each other safely solely on them. Story 109. Post 542. When taking a lie detector test, when you are asked a question where you need to lie, imagine them asking the opposite question if you are asked, "Did you take down Javonte Williams?" You imagine them asking, "Did you not take down Javonte Williams?" Your body language will seem like you are telling the truth. Story 110. Convince people you are a bad liar. Do something slightly stupid, lie about it, and make it obvious that you're lying. Read their face to make sure they know it if they don't confront you. It will allow you to manipulate their trust. And when big shoot's going down, you can lie with confidence and they will most likely believe you. Story 111. When a girl gives you her number and you suspect that it might be fake, repeat the number, misreading a digit, and see if she corrects you. Story 112. The universe was formed 14 billion years ago. The planet Earth, 4.5 billion years old. Life first arose 3.5 billion years ago. At the time of your birth, there were 5.5 billion people alive on Earth. The chance that your parents met is infinitesimally small. The chance of you yourself being born, even smaller. I recite this to myself every time I feel either too important or not important enough. My existence is the result of an immeasurably large series of forces, events, and random chances that have culminated in a singularly unique being. Story 113. In another thread devoted to running, I think, the guy suggested thinking about Sting every time you didn't want to go for a run, because Sting runs 5 miles every day, and fudge that guy. So now I do that for other activities I don't feel like doing but really should. For instance, when I'm ordering a sandwich from my work cafeteria, I'll want to get cheese on the sandwich. But I know it's an unnecessary pleasure, so I'll think about James Van Der Beek and how he doesn't put cheese on anything, including pizza, and fudge that guy. Then I don't get the cheese. This can be done for anything you are hesitating or procrastinating to do. Story 114. Charities use this one all the time. Forgot its actual name. Foot in the door technique, maybe? If you want someone to give you something, like money, ask for something outrageous first before lowering it to something more plausible. "Hey man, can I borrow $100? "What? No, okay, how about 20? "Oh, all right." Story 115. If you are dealing with someone more powerful than you in an adversarial situation, 1. People tend to mirror the verbal habits of people that they perceive as more powerful. Avoid doing this as it plays into their sense of power. 2. Pause and wait before you talk, then talk slowly and confidently. People with more power talk in such a way. 3. You don't have to answer questions directly. Doing so plays into their sense of power. Answer questions with questions. 4. Absolutely avoid nodding along and making eye contact while they are speaking. This gives them more confidence. When they speak, act bored, stare into space, etc. This can be flustering. 5. Pretend to be really confused about things, even if you understand perfectly. Ask people to explain themselves, then ask them to explain more. This has a way of wearing out adversaries. Story 116. Happiness spreads. If one person you're working with has a good attitude, it will usually slowly catch, and soon everyone is happier and having a good time too. If you can be that one person, go for it. You can go from hating your job to enjoying it. Story 117. I'm stealing this from Joe Rogan, but every time someone is being cunty, instead of getting mad back at them, I just think of them as a little baby throwing a tantrum. Then I smile at them. Story 118. When asking for help in an emergency situation, ask a specific person rather than shouting for help in a crowd. Because of a concept called diffusion of responsibility, crowds are not very likely to help. You may in fact be in more danger with large numbers of people around than if there were only a few. That being said, if you are a member of a crowd and someone shouts for help generally, you should know that others are very unlikely to react. That means you should help. Story 119. Late to the party, but always ask people a lot of questions when you first meet them. People have better impressions, memories of interactions in which they talk for a greater percentage of the time. Story 120. I had a guy try to mug me hijack my car the other night at like 1 a.m. I was stopped in an empty lot in the hood trying to send a text, and he tried to get in my car while I was in it. I told him I was meeting a violent schizophrenic there who I was attempting to find police EMS help for. I could see him weighing his options, and he elected to just bum a smoke and some French fries instead. He ran off. If you're getting mugged or otherwise attacked and it hasn't turned violent, give your attacker pause by adding new variables to the mugger-muggy relationship. Story 121. I've found the expression, fake it till you make it, applies well. A good smile, strong eye contact, and standing up straight works wonders in awkward, uncomfortable new situations. Story 122. Speak with a soft and more high-pitched voice. People find it more comforting. Sit with your arms open, leading people to believe you are an open person. Make eye contact. Listen for small details a person adds about themselves in conversation, because you can use that in a later conversation to gain their trust. So, for example, they say something about a childhood memory. Next time you two talk, share a smiley story. Story 123. Honestly, I know it's cliche, but go out with your coworkers after work. Whatever class you are, high or low, go out with them and either make friends or switch it up with other coworkers every other time. Go out for cigars and bond with them. Go out to the bar, not to get tipsy and lament your issues, but to talk and be cheerful. Invite them over on the weekend or just hang out. You'll make better friends, you'll enjoy work more, and you'll make a good impression. Story 124. If you are in need of accurate facts, post something that you know is false. The facts will be rolling in right away. Story 125. Oh, shoot. I know I'm late to the party, but if you want to make someone do you a favor, preface the favor by making it sound huge. Steven, are you busy? Can you do me a huge favor? Yeah, sure, what's up? Can you go grab me a bag of croutons from downstairs? Oh, that's not a big deal, sure. They think it's not a huge favor, but a small one, so they'll be more inclined to the favor. Works every time at work. Story 126. Bit late, but I've learned this from a secretary a few years back. If presented a choice, people will incline to choose the last choice presented to them. In her case, this worked because asking, should I take a note for said person, or will you call back yourself, would lead people to calling back themselves much more often, making her work easier. Now, this doesn't work with all questions. Do you want to go to Venice or Rome for holidays? But it usually works with questions where the choice isn't that important. Do you want to eat pizza or take out Chinese is another good one. Put the choice you want them to take as the last one and pray they take the bait. Another pro tip, don't let them know you do this, or they may think you're putting your choice as the last one when that ain't necessarily true. Story 127. I may be a little late to this, but reading over a Teddy Roosevelt fact down below, I remembered something. Note, I don't know where the fact came from or if it's even true. When negotiating, always ask for more than what you expect to get. I assume it was Roosevelt, but one of the presidents asked for many more missiles or something similar than he actually wanted. He knew that if he asked for how many were needed, he was not going to get them, so he asked for a ridiculous amount and was approved for how many he needed. This worked with my mom a few days ago when she purchased a new car. The dealer was asking for about $24,000 on a 2014 Nissan Rogue, and we got the price down to just over $19,000 after 2 trade-ins. The salesperson tried to get her to around $18,500, but my mom wasn't having it. He walked away and came back and said he was going to give us additional money for the vehicles and lower the price of the car by $500. Walked out only paying $18,300. Story 128. I saw this one from another Redditor a few days ago. I forget who and where, but it made me chuckle. There are only 2 rules you need to follow in order to achieve success. 1, never share everything you know. Story 129. My history teacher once told me a very important lesson he learned. Deny, deny, deny. If you've already lied and denied any accusation, stick with it. No matter what new evidence is shown, stick with your statement. Story 130. Being polite. I shouldn't even have to say this, but simple things like eye contact, a smile, saying please and thank you, and apologizing if you cock up will go a long, long way in getting me to help you. Story 131. Show everyone a little respect, a little kindness. Everyone. When I can't find something at a huge grocery store, I'll ask a clerk or stocker that's busy, but I'll say, I know you're busy, but what aisle is obscure object on? Oh, actually, I'll just show you. Thank you, sir, mom. No problem. Is there anything else you need? Sometimes I have to tell them that, really, I think I can find the cereal aisle on my own. People are so much more eager to help when you show just even a little respect. Even if it's someone that is getting paid minimum wage for some crappy job. Story 132. If you have a hard time maintaining eye contact with an intimidating person or anyone, look at their nose, their forehead, or in between their eyes. They cannot tell. Also good for staring contests. Story 133. If you're in a fight and you're outnumbered, tear the closest motherfucker's jugular hour with your teeth. The others will be freaked out and run away. This is a joke. In no way do I condone takedown attackers unless absolutely necessary. Story 134. Only just opened this link, and the first thing I see is, enough with the jerk pennies. This should be good. Story 135. When making requests, always try to provide a reason, even if it is entirely trivial. A classic social psych experiment involves someone asking if they can cut in line for, i.e., for a photocopier. There were 3 conditions. A, the request on its own. B, the request with a rational reason. It's an emergency. C, the request with a non-rational reason, i.e., because I need to use the photocopier. Both conditions B and C elicited greater cooperation than on condition A. Thus, we note that even when the reason is completely arbitrary, people are more likely to cooperate when one is preferred. Most likely because when the mind is on autopilot, it takes the reason cue at face value and figures, well, at least they've got a reason. I don't remember immediately whether or not conditions B and C differed from one another. Story 136. Body language is key. Even in the way you stand, if you stand facing someone and your shoulders are square, it is almost a subconscious standoff. You are equals or battling for who is alpha, if you will. If you want someone to feel empowered or in control, simply deflect to them. Open your shoulders and turn slightly, almost to say you are the boss, you are in control. Also works on the verse side, where you want to appear confident or in control or equal, stand with your shoulders square to them. Use this to your advantage in sales, in school, in interviews. I use this simple tactic all the time consciously, and I seem to get good results with it. That's it for this video. Don't forget to support Vancher and my second channel, Vanchus. See you soon.